Welcome to the stage Shenda Loughnane, Global Strategy Director from iProspect, and Kassie Kemp, Global Head of Digital and Strategy at Hilton. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. You've probably heard a lot of this conference about ad blocking. It's possibly the most talked about topic in our industry, if not the most talked about topic over the last 12 months, certainly within the ad industry. And research tells us that consumers use ad blockers primarily because they don't want irrelevant ads, poorly targeted ads, blocking up their bandwidth and destroying their overall consumer experience. But as we know, if we can do personalization right, it reaps huge rewards. So a well-targeted, highly personal ad based on good intent data actually delivers really strong return on investment. And in particular, I think personalization is going to become even more important for marketers as the entire digital ecosystem becomes more personalized. So everything from content streams right through to products are becoming more personalized. And increasingly, I think brands will be defined by their ability to do personalization well. So as marketers, a key task for us is to become much, much better at personalization because there is as much bad personalization out there as there is good, unfortunately, at the moment. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to talk about personalization, not about ad blockers. And I'm delighted that we have an advertiser with us on stage today who knows a lot about personalization. Kassie Kemp is Director of Digital Acquisition at Hilton Hotels. And I think, Kassie, it's quite fitting that we're here in a Hilton hotel talking to Hilton Hotels about personalization. And Hilton Hotels has over 4,000 properties, millions, I don't know how many millions of customers, and a loyalty program that's probably the largest of its kind in this industry. So we're very interested to hear about your personalization strategy. But before we talk about that specifically, if we could maybe talk in broader sense about personalization. And I was very taken with a piece of research that I saw recently about personalization that said 70% of consumers actually say they would be more likely to buy a product or a service if it was personalized. And that, to me, seems like a huge number. What do you think is driving consumers saying that I want personalization? What do you think is driving that?
Definitely. I think that there are two things. The first one is the make me feel special kind of mentality. What you can see it in our properties when the bartender at the hotel bar downstairs you've gone 2 nights in a row remembers the drink that you had the night before. Or when you go into your Starbucks every single day, they remember your drink, they remember your name. The personal interaction, that just to know that it's a special experience, I think is really what drives the need and the want for more personalization. I think the other is around adding value and making it easy. Consumers these days are barraged with all sorts of content, especially in the digital space. There's a lot that's kind of thrown at them, and really personalization can be used, number one, to add value to their lives, but also to cut through the clutter, if you will, and really know, for the consumer to understand, okay, this brand or this piece of content really knows my interest or knows what I am in market for. And so that helps kind of drive home maybe their next step or their next part of the journey.
So it's about making customers feel special in the digital world as you would do in the offline world
Treating
as well.
Them like humans.
Treating them like humans.
And not just a number or a cookie idea, but really understanding where that on the other side of the screen, whether it's a mobile screen or a computer screen, that it is a human on the other side. So.
And when we think about consumers, and they're saying, broadly speaking, they want more personalization. If we look then at different industries, from finance through to retail through to hospitality, and then maybe in the other end of the scale, FMCG, so food, drinks companies. Do you think there's certain sectors that should be thinking about personalization more? Is it relevant to everyone, or are there certain sectors where personalization is absolutely key?
I think in general, all advertisers, brands are trying to find the right place for personalization, just as digital is evolving. The need and the want to personalize is absolutely there. Some brands and marketers are doing this already, and it doesn't have to even be in digital. We could use the Coke example. How cool does it feel to find the Coke with your name on it, or be able to find the Coke and you just buy that extra one because, hey, it said my BFF and I'm going to take it back to my BFF. So the personalization in many different sectors, but I think really where it really resonates is, and where it's needed, are brands that transact online. Really being able to bring, again, the human aspect to an online transaction where it's not just someone clicking around on a website, but on our website, it's a user that might be a Diamond member that has stayed in our New York properties multiple times. We should know that and be able to personalize that booking experience, either for this current maybe business trip, or maybe when they're dreaming about their next vacation. Our goal and what we are working towards on a day-to-day basis is trying to make that experience more personalized for them.
And can you say what sort of results you've seen? So as you've looked more personalization at Hilton, have you seen quantifiable business gains as a result?
So I would say we do a lot of testing, exposed and controlled testing, just to kind of understand. And we'll just say that it's absolutely worth the effort. The conversion lift is definitely worth the effort. We see that the users are responding to more personalized experience across many channels and silos.
Okay. And then if we then think about Hilton's personalization strategy, overall you're collecting data about consumers that enables you to make more informed decisions in terms of the type of offers that you might give to those consumers, and you're collecting quite a lot of data, I imagine, about those consumers. What's the point at which you're moving from personalization into intrusiveness, or some would say creepy? You know, is there a line? Is there a point where you say, you know, we don't cross that line? How do you find that?
There's always going to be that contingency of consumers that are terrified of big data. And I think we have a responsibility as brands and advertisers to know and acknowledge and protect that. And so when a user is sharing something, you have a responsibility to use it in the right way, but then also inform the user of how you're using it. And I think it really, you have to get back down to kind of the point earlier of treating them like humans, and not just dynamically inserting in, you know, their name just because you can. I don't think that necessarily is the point. And so whether it's in email or on site, what's going to make that experience most unique and most valuable is going to be the key.
And I guess it's also about being upfront about how you use the data as well.
Exactly. So, and I think the second point around that is, for us, to a certain extent, our guests expect personalization, and so you have to absolutely be upfront about the data that you are collecting, and then also how you intend to use the data. And so it really is, like, I'll use Google as an example. Google is very upfront about, you can go and log on a page and you can see everything that they have collected about the user, and you can opt out. I think more and more advertisers and brands are going to have to get to that, where the user knows exactly, hey, here's the information, here's how it's going to be used. And I think that will in turn make the users trust the brands, and then also will make them more apt to potentially give more data, knowing the value that they're going to get in return.
And I think that's the key, isn't it? That sort of trade-off between, I know what I'm giving and I know what I'm going to get in return. You know, and as you've alluded to there, not all marketers are yet, let's say, doing personalization in the right way. So it's very easy to say we should all do it better. Right. But clearly there's some big challenges inherent in delivering on personalization. And you know, at Hilton you do it at scale. Yep. You know, can you tell us what what maybe are some of the challenges you've faced, or what you think are the key challenges inherent in developing personalization?
Definitely. There's 3 key challenges. I'll speak to them one at a time, but the biggest one is really bringing it all together. It's very easy to do personalizations in silos. It's very easy to do personalization on a website. It's very easy to do it in email, in media, in many different channels. It's very hard to bring all of that together, and it's even harder then to bring the digital world and connect it with the offline world. And so the ability to, number one, have a strategy. We at Hilton have a personalization department that is solely responsible for understanding the personalization that's happening at every single department, sharing the learnings across the organization, but then they're also responsible for decisioning across those silos. And so understanding how do we bring all of those pieces together to create a seamless experience for our guests, not only in the digital space, but then how do we then bridge the gap to their experience on the property.
And that personalization team, are they effectively the guardians of the overall strategy and the data within that?
Yeah, so they are the ones that, they, at the end of the day, so I'm a channel owner for them, and they want us to continue to evolve in our channels, but they're there to guide, because at the end of the day, my focus is to make sure that when I get my media to get you into one of our properties, I want you to have the best experience. And so by partnering with the personalization team, it enables us to be able to ensure that you're going to have the best experience when you're there.
Right. And so you said there's 3 challenges. So the first one is the strategy, obviously, and bringing all that data together. And I think, having an overall umbrella department, the personalization department that runs that, seems a sensible approach to bring all that together.
The second one is around technology and data. So I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's very easy to do personalization in the various silos, but technology isn't quite there yet. There are some we've seen even some today that are really trying to help advertisers bring their data together, but how data is engaging with each other, being able to connect the pipes, there's a lot of challenges that our advertisers are still facing out there. Unfortunately, it seems like a one platform solution that the PhD CEO spoke about yesterday of in 5 years, AI will get us all to one platform. It still seems like a unicorn right now. I'm very hopeful that we can get there much sooner, but it's definitely something that is going to be a challenge, at least in the near term.
And I guess also a challenge in the data and technology space is the data itself and managing that data and things like privacy concerns, et cetera.
Absolutely. The privacy is a big focus of ours as a stakeholder in how data is used related to our guests. We definitely work with our privacy team to ensure that we are being as open and honest with our guests on how that's being used, but then also we're able to not only use it within the United States, but then in my role is to drive demand internationally into the United States. And so what are the various variances depending on the region or the market that the user is in, and where does one regulation or one restriction start and another one stop? So there's a lot of considerations that we have to keep into play, especially as data is used in the digital space.
Yeah, and then the third challenge, I think you said to me earlier, is around insights and measurement.
Yes.
And testing, I guess, is part of that as well.
So as we have, we've been on the personalization journey for several years, and so initially a lot of the challenges around measurement were you can look at certain metrics, you can look at conversion rate, you can look at many others, but what are the ones that are really proving that personalization is adding value? And because it is about a human experience, we may have gotten a booking, but did we get the booking because the experience was personalized, or did we get it because that really was the only location? And so I think there's a lot of a talk in the industry about incrementality too as well, and I think that same aspect applies to personalization. And so we've come up with some testing methodologies and algorithms to really help us measure and understand the various touch points, but it has taken some kind of trial and error and understanding whether or not certain metrics are indicative of success or certain metrics may be indicative of failure, because you don't always know where the personalization breaks down. And so you have to kind of come up with some of those alert metrics to say, okay, did personalization break down? Was there defaults that kind of were experienced across the consumer journey? If your default rate is high, then you weren't really personalizing.
Yeah,
and
right.
so there's a lot of different things you kind of have to consider and trial and error on.
So if we're some of key challenges are around developing a strategy, data and technology, and then sort of measurement and testing.
Absolutely.
So, and quite a lot of considerations within all of that.
Yes.
If we could go on maybe and talk more specifically about your exact personalization strategy. And we've talked, I think, up front a little bit about data. Of course, data is a really important part of it. You know, so if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, what's your overall approach? And then in particular, can you talk to us about your approach specifically as it relates to data?
So our approach to data, we've taken a lot over the last 4 years to kind of bring our data approach together. And so it has been a massive collaboration among our CRM team, among our legal team, among our personalization team, and even the media team to really bring what are all of the various data points together. And so for me in my role, I'm specifically related to digital media, but we've been able to come up with these attributes about users. Whether or not someone always comes and stays on our properties and eats the breakfast downstairs, or someone is an honors member or a non-honors member. And so I really kind of call it a mashup, because what we've been able to do is bring all these attributes together and start to understand, okay, which combination of these attributes can we really pull together to start to personalize that experience. It's not enough that you might be a Diamond member, but if you're a Diamond member that always goes to New York, then that might be something of value. And so another example in this case is we've taken a non-honors member who, via third-party data, we know has booked a flight to New York. And now, if you'll click ahead, we're able to not only show them a banner featuring New York, but we're also able to show them a banner that, it animated very quickly, but showed them our Stop Clicking Around campaign and kind of gives, which is about the value of booking direct, but and also that there are a lot of benefits as a result of being an honors member.
And so can I ask, so that's based on, you mentioned obviously a lot of first-party data, so your own data is driving those attributes and quite detailed data about customer preferences. To what extent are you using third-party data sources, for example, or any second-party data sources? How's that combined?
So we're definitely looking at, we are actively using and looking at strategic data partnerships to understand, what can enhance our first-party data. And there are definitely, travel intentions. Someone booking a flight is a pretty significant kind of travel intention trigger. And so in this example, it's working with third parties to understand, okay, now we know Shenda has booked a flight to New York. So yes, third-party data definitely plays a big role.
Okay.
I have one more example. So someone has come and booked a military rate with us previously, so we offer discounts to military members, and but we also know via third-party data that they are also a comparison shopper, and so now we have the ability to show them one of our suites brands and actively market to the military audience. And so it's definitely bringing multiple price points together allows us to kind of get very specific with offers or discounts as is most relevant.
So obviously, when you look at all of those different attributes, the combinations and segmentation that you can do, obviously is huge. What sort of scale are we talking about in terms of?
So today we have over 1.5 million different variations of messages and content that we can distribute within the media space. And it really is a matter of how do we match all of those targeting or audience segments, and then also with the message that is there.
And I think the message is an interesting point. We've got a slide here that shows some of your creative assets that you use, because of course, when we talk about personalization, there's two parts of the equation. One is the data that helps us do the targeting, and that's, of course, I think what we tend to talk most about is how we're targeting better and using data to target better. But then the other side is the content. So it's no good having the targeting right if we're not able to produce the content. And you talked about the sheer number of segments you're able to create. How are you dealing with that challenge of having that sheer volume of creative assets and capability, and how are you managing that? That's obviously a challenge to manage that from a time and cost perspective.
It's absolutely, and I would say this might be one of the more costly spaces. The marketing stack is absolutely key here. You have to ensure, number one, I kind of spoke to, there is no unicorn, so there's not one partner that you can go to across all of your silos. And so in order to create some of these templates and things like that, so a lot of times it requires unique partners depending on whether it's your site or email or whatever channel you're talking about. And so in order to create that seamless experience, you also have to choose partners that they all work together. And so connecting the pipes is absolutely key. But then once you have all the pipes in place, it's absolutely okay. How do we get to the right content? And so a funny story, this was very much in the beginning, probably 4 or 5 years ago. We were trying to stand up our DMP, trying to stand up our DCO at the same time. And we had picked 4 audiences that we were just gonna pilot. It was gonna be our use case. And we had gone through all of the pipe connecting, and we thought we had it figured out. But then when we kind of stepped back a little bit out of the technology world and tried to get to the marketing strategy world, 2 of those audiences, we didn't have anything to say to them. And so it's really, you have to kind of hone in on what are going to be some of the audiences that you have something valuable to add to that situation. But for us, it's absolutely a combination of, we have to bring most of our agencies together, most of our marketing strategy teams together to really understand, okay, as we onboard different data points, we now need a different message to say. And so it's been kind of trial and error, but we're very reliant on technology. We're reliant on making as much of it as automated as possible. But there are certain instances where we have a great message to say, and we don't want it to be in a template environment. We want it to be more custom, and so we work with our teams to ensure that we have the appropriate number of variations to be able to do so. So I think the biggest hurdle with fully relying on the stack is you don't want your message to be sterile. You don't want it just to look. And so, there are certain templates out there that are like that, but there are others where we really kind of try to get away from something that is boxy or templated.
And I think that's been one of the problems, hasn't it, with personalization, that some of these creative templates just don't look very good. They look like personalized templated creative, which is what you want to avoid. And of course, when we talk about that, primarily we're talking about display and programmatic and email and channels like that. But if we then look at another big channel for Hilton, which is search, obviously it's much quicker and easier, much more efficient. I won't say much more, but it's efficient to produce those creative messages, personalized messages, very fast in search. And I think one of the other interesting things about search is the ability to look at moment marketing and to really contextualize your message. Probably one of the nicest examples of that is some work that iProspect and Hilton that we did together, which was for the flight cancellations. Do you maybe want to talk a little bit about that campaign?
Yeah. So this was a campaign it began a couple of years ago, and it really is about the use of third-party data. We saw an opportunity of understanding that when users are stuck in an area where flights are canceled, they need a place to stay. They're gonna be here overnight. And for us, there could be 2 challenges around that, right? It could be a matter of our properties at our hotels or at our airports or nearby may be full, and we may not have a place for you to stay. So we may not want to advertise in that space. Or we may have lots of availability, or may have properties within shuttle distance where we're willing to shuttle users. And so we saw a lot of opportunity to not only determine when and how we're buying in search, but also how we are messaging within search. And so we have a great case study that kind of shows the evolution of this. So
play the video.
Yeah.
I haven't slept in weeks, but these tired feet can't rest tonight. traveling by the moon. I'm gonna get there soon, not gonna close my eyes. As hard as it is to say, when you're miles away, I still need you. I'm gonna start a fire just to be reminded of the one we knew. We're going home for the summer. We have 1,000 delights that we are bound to uncover. If we just give it the time, all my plans are in you. You're my gold mine. They say that we're getting close. When the colors show, I can see you shine. I know that talk is cheap, but let's just see what hides inside. We're going home for the summer. We have 1,000 delights that we are bound to uncover. If we just give it the time, all my plans are in you. You're the hand I'm holding to. If you jump, I'll jump too. You're my gold mine.
So that's a fun little video. Now, I will say we can't make Girl Night happen everywhere around these parts, but it's definitely something that is an aspiration and where we're trying to get to. So.
And on that point, you know, when you talk about personalization, we've talked so far about it in terms of ad messaging, but obviously, as we said up front, you know, personalization is really a whole host of different experiences, from products to the actual customer experience, right through their customer journey. Can you tell some of the things that Hilton are doing in the personalization space, maybe outside of media and advertising?
Yep. So we are constantly, like I mentioned, we have a department that is solely focused on evolving personalization throughout our organization. I think the greatest example for us is with our honors members and our honors app. So within our honors app, you can go in and check in using the app. You can choose your own room. And so if you want to talk about taking a mobile experience and being able to bring that to the property, for you to be able to go and say, I want a room close to the elevator, close away from the elevator, you can do that.
Could I have done that here?
You could have done that here. And then even most recently, we recently launched an overlay of Google Maps. And so now you can see not only which part of town your room will be facing as you choose your room, which is also a cool new feature. The other piece is in, I think it's over 100 properties now, you can actually use your app as your key to your room, so you never even have to visit the front desk. And so we're doing a lot of evolution. A lot of the benefits are for our honors members are going to be featured around our app, but you can even, when you're booking via the app, you can automatically schedule your next Uber with our Uber partnership. So there's a lot of cool things that we're piloting and really kind of rolling out for members to take advantage of.
And I think that shows us, you know, maybe a glimpse of the future as to what personalization could look like.
Right.
You know, just to finish up a last question for you, you know, maybe a kind of a prediction into the future. When we think about personalization, you know, we're at the beginnings, we're sort of grappling around with different types of data sources. But obviously we've got the Internet of Things, where devices will be able to measure our emotions, and we've got virtual reality. You know, do you think there's going to be a tipping point where just everything is personalized all the time?
I don't think we're close to a tipping point yet. I think that there's still a lot of opportunities that brands and advertisers need to take advantage of in how they're using their own data today. I do think that virtual reality and AI are going to get us closer and going to make us get there much more quickly than maybe we're used to today. But I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunity before we get to that final tipping point.
So lots more work to be done in the basics
Lots more work
first.
to do, yes, absolutely.
Okay, Kassie, thank you very much.
Thank you.